reflections. This past week has been one of Thanksgiving, and then probably some of you all probably went out and saw something called Black Friday. But we're not going to talk about Black Friday today. We've got to talk about pumpkins and all kinds of things that we'll talk about, and you'll see where we're going with this reflection, because we're very blessed today to have two people with us, and they both come and go to the same church. One of them's the pastor, and Will Wool. Nice to see you again. It's really great to have you here.
It's good to be here, Ray.
And then we have a fellow who's been there, and he'll be telling us about it, Paul Thompson. Paul, thank you for showing up today.
Good morning. Good to be here as well.
Good to see you. I've known you for a long time.
Yes, we have.
There we go. So, but today, before we get started, I want to be able to, sometimes I forget about doing all of our sponsors, because they're the best, and they help us and they help you because they help each other throughout all of St. Johns County and through other places. So we'll start off with the DJ's Clam Shack today, and then I'll tell you about the Shee family that'll follow. You know, as I've said to you so many times on this show, that this is craving fresh, flavorful seafood. And that really is. And it's in the heart of the historic St. Augustine. Can you imagine that? Just right here is where we have it. And if you go to DJ's Clam Shack, it's on 21 Hippolyta Street, and it's right where the Northeast meets Key West. And I've been going back and forth to Key West to help with the first responders. Hadn't worked out yet, but we'll see how it turns. Well, DJ's Clam Shack was born in the Florida Keys and rooted in New England tradition. And DJ's serves up, as we talked about before, lobster rolls, clams, fried clams, conch fritters, more, just made fresh with the highest quality and the ingredients that you never will ever find somewhere else. And on this time, you know what, they open on Tuesday, not on today, but they open on Tuesday through Sunday from 11 to 9. It's the perfect spot to grab a bite, stroll the old streets of St. Augustine, and taste one of the best seafood experiences in this country. And then Chris Shee. I want to tell one more thing about him today and what he's done and what the Shee family has done. On Thanksgiving Day, they had over 200 people coming in to be at Thanksgiving. They had anybody that wanted to come in could come in without anything except bringing themselves. And I give that to Chris Shee. Really important is how he's helped us, but you'll learn about this just for a second. We want to extend our heartfelt thanks to the Shee family, one of the most generous and community-focused families in St. Johns County. Though through their work with the Tringali Barn, which is where they had the Thanksgiving dinners, a premier event and wedding venue, and the leadership of Chris Shee, the family continues to support and to uplift countless, and I'm being seriously, countless local causes. And their commitment is to giving back much and give so much that lasts forever and it impacts us. And we are truly grateful for them to be in our community, and we thank you, the Shee family. You make St. Johns County much stronger, and we thank you for that. So today, as we're speaking today, Pastor Will, I'm going to call you Pastor Will, and you are in a place that we'll just show for a second of what was sometimes always called the Pumpkin Church. So I think we have that on our air. I think that's where it is, and that was a time that you could see it, and it's right downtown, and you're right there with the Methodist Church, and you and I have talked before, but I'd like you to tell the folks here, because they haven't heard you as much as I did in other places where I've been with you. So tell them a little bit about you so that they know what you're doing, and you can look at them and see what they're saying. Okay?
Sure. Well, I'm originally from Polk County, from Lakeland, Florida. That's where I was born and raised since I was about 5 years old. Grew up in Polk County, loved it. My grandfather was a Nazarene pastor. And then when he died, when I was about 7, we went to the church across the street from Nazarene. We became Baptist. And we were Baptist, and that was one of my earliest memories of being in church. And then from there, about a year and a half later, my parents got divorced, and we moved to different places, and they got divorced from other people and moved to other places. And eventually in sixth grade, we ended up in Celebration, Florida, Orlando, Florida. And I was pretty much atheist, agnostic. I wanted nothing to do with God or faith, or just didn't have any connection. So all I did was play tennis with my time. I had nothing to do on Sundays except go to tennis tournaments. So I did tennis, was atheist, and then I went on a beach retreat. We went to Daytona Beach, and it was a non-denominational church. A friend invited me to go on. And it was there, not the first night. I didn't really experience much that first night, but the second night, we had a worship service, and that was where I just felt God just kind of calling me and moving me and changing me and says, hey, there's something else here.
Well, he didn't want you to forget who he was.
Yeah, no. I think he was always working behind the scenes, whether it be through sports or whether it be through all the different family pieces. He was always working. My ears weren't open. Right. My heart wasn't open. So it was in 10th grade. I experienced that at a non-denominational church. And then from there, I started asking questions about, why did bad things happen to good people? Why did good things happen to bad people? If God is so powerful, why do all these terrible things happen? And I found a Presbyterian church in downtown Celebration. The youth pastor there helped me kind of approach those questions. There's no answer, but approach them. And we met for coffee every 3 weeks. And I became Presbyterian in high school.
How old were you then?
I was 17.
Okay.
So trying to figure out my way with life, trying to figure out where I'm going to go to college. And he was really, really instrumental for me. So I became Presbyterian. And then I went back to my roots of Lakeland, Florida. Went to Florida Southern College. And I played tennis there. And I also knew that I wanted to study religion because I loved asking all those questions. And at Florida Southern College, it's a Methodist school. I didn't know anything about the Methodist Church. I went with my grandma a few times, but that's it. And it was there, as I studied faith, doctrine, theology, learned more about grace, I became Methodist in college. So I love my college experience. It really shaped me to who I am now. But I thought I was going to teach. I thought I was going to be a professor. I loved Greek. I loved ancient languages. I thought I'd teach. But then I in between college and I applied for seminary. I applied for seminary, got in, and then I thought I'd teach, but then I got the seminary and I was studying in a carrel in a library for 3-4 hours a day, and I hated it.
Right.
Hated it because it was just fluorescent lights. You don't talk to anybody. I want to talk to people. And I said, maybe this isn't for me. So I was a youth pastor at the time just to kind of make some money. And being a youth pastor, my first Sunday after Christmas, I got the opportunity to preach to a big church.
Right.
And I was scared to death. I was so scared, so nervous. I had my whole manuscript written out, and I planned it for being about 20-25 minutes. I got up there and I preached, and it was about 8 minutes long. But during that moment, that was where I was like, oh, I felt so, when you do something and you just feel so alive. So this is what I meant to do. That's what I felt that day.
Well, I knew that you had been over in Jacksonville for a period of time before you came here.
Yes.
And we'll talk a little bit about that because then we'll talk about the Pumpkin Church.
Yeah, sure.
Okay?
Sure.
All right.
Sure.
Well,
that's a little about me. Sorry, I went too long.
No, that's not too long at all. We're just here. But I wanted to let you know, Paul, since I've known you for a long time and I knew your dad was in with an insurance company and doing all of that stuff here and had his name on it, and I remember having to stop at his parking lots and all of those things.
That's right.
Is there, and you knew me as you were younger as well,
Mm-hmm.
so we did that. But tell them a little bit about you as well, and you can certainly talk to them as well.
Let's talk to everybody. Good morning. I'm Paul Thompson, and so somewhat of my spiritual background, since we're going on this ride here. My folks also divorced when I was 5, and I grew up in Nashville. That's where I really call home. And we were Catholic, and went to 8 years of Catholic school in Nashville with Dominican nuns, all with the habits and everything. In fact, Dad had the bishop call in first grade, called the head principal there, Sister Mary Angela, to say, I need you to allow one more person to come in. And they've never had a class of 31 before, 31 little kids. So 8 years of that, then everyone transferred to the next Catholic high school, which was Father Ryan. And good school, but 2 more years of Catholic teaching. I switched high schools because of my brother.
Now he lives in Chicago now.
Eric lives in Chicago, pretended he was my dad, called up and wanted to know their statistics of
How you're doing?
know how the school was doing.
Oh, okay.
And so I got called down to the principal's office, 1,000.
I can understand that.
Well, for the first time, I wasn't in trouble. And they said they didn't know who Paul Thompson was. All of a sudden, his dad's calling and wants to know if they're college accredited and all that. Well,
Wow.
I ended up switching high schools there. And then in college, I actually attended St. Joe's University at a Jesuit school there. And that was a little bit more training.
That was in Nashville?
That was in Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. I
Yes.
thought it wasn't in Nashville.
Yeah,
so,
St. Joe's University
Yeah.
basketball team. So I did that, and that was Jesuits are tough.
Well, I want you to know something. We used to have a person here in St. Augustine whose brother was the head of all of the Jesuits.
Okay.
And in fact, he was a head of then later to become the Pope that was under him.
Oh, sure.
That was under him.
Our new Pope.
That's right. The first time that there was ever a Jesuit Pope.
That's right. An American.
So, yeah. And even me, I used to debate against the Jesuits in high school. So I know how strong they are.
Yeah, and I was from the South, and Father Black, I remember him very well. He gave me a tough time up there.
Yeah, well, but that helps. That helps in the long term.
Oh,
Not the short term. Not the short term. So, but go ahead and tell me some more about you.
so I came back after college to work with my dad in the real estate land development, and we started off with Pelican Reef and finished that. Then
Well, you came to St. Augustine at that time.
Right. So I moved back in '86,
86.
and I was here.
That's about when I first started meeting you. It was
Yep.
somewhere around maybe 1990 or somewhere in that area,
Yeah.
91 or somewhere in that area.
That's right. We started at Pelican Reef, 4th of July, '92. We opened up
That was after you
first
had done
home.
that, because that's
Yeah.
when we came to St. Augustine. Was after that. We had come here. We actually built the house in '99. Well, we got here in '98, but I would always come down here all the time. We love St. Augustine.
Yeah.
So yeah, but somehow we met along that way. I don't remember when exactly, but yeah.
It's been a long time for
It
sure.
has. It
And
has. Yeah.
so I did the real estate thing with Dad for 30 years. We had a great business relationship and partnership. It was fantastic, and I appreciate him every day since he passed on what he taught me. But we went on to do Harbor Island over there and some other medical buildings. And so right now I'm cleaning up all the little leftover lands from the Davis
We'll
Shores.
get a little bit into that a little bit later, and we can talk about how you're helping the county and everything else as well. So we'll come back to that as well, but that gives a little good steps, and then we're going to figure out how you happen to be at the Methodist Church.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's good. So as we're going through this conversation, I was always trying to reflect a lot about this. That's what we're doing this time. It used to be a conversation time. Now it's a reflection time. Because now you can go back and see where you were at and where you're going. But God already knew both of those. And so from you, as you left and you were in Jacksonville, you ended up coming here to St. Augustine. Well, how did that happen?
Yeah, so I was serving a church in Mandarin. I was an associate pastor there for 7 years, and
Was that your first time of being a full pastor?
yes, first
during
time being
that
a full pastor.
That's
I was
what I thought.
a chaplain for a year before that at a hospital.
Right.
Been there for 7 years, and then I got a call from the bishop and the district superintendent saying, "Hey, this church in St. Augustine is available. Would you be interested?" And I said, "Well, let me think about it, pray about it, think about here where God's calling me." And then I said, "Yeah, I'd definitely be available to be the senior pastor there."
Had you ever been to St. Augustine before?
I had. The first time I moved here to Jacksonville, they had the locals only come and you can like ride the trolley and go to Madame Tussauds
Sure.
and do that for free. So I came September of 2014. That was my first time coming to St. Augustine, and I just went by myself and I loved it.
Yeah.
But I had no idea. And I guess I should say, I did play tennis at college in Florida Southern, and we would play against Flagler.
Right.
So the tennis courts are literally catty corner to the church. And I remember just warming up, we would run around that area. We ran around First Church.
So you also saw probably the Methodist Church.
Yes, I ran right by it, but I had no idea. I wasn't Methodist at that point.
That's great.
What is this old building? I had no idea. And those little pieces kind of, and now I'm here. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know that you've been doing so many other things too. And tell us a little bit about dealing with other religions. And I know you had something happen on Thursday.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Tell the
Sure.
folks about that.
So I got involved with there's a St. Augustine interfaith community that I got involved with about 2.5 years ago. And every Thursday before Thanksgiving, they do an interfaith service where they invite people from all different faith traditions, Protestant, Catholic, Orthodox, the Lakota Tyaspi's there, Muslim, Jewish, and we all get together and do a worship service. And I went to the first one 2.5 years ago at Grace United Methodist Church, and I loved it. I loved meeting all the people. I loved connecting with the faith leaders. I loved that we were all gathered together. So after that, I got more involved with the group. I started going to meetings, and then they asked me if I would be the president of the St. Augustine Interfaith Community.
When did that start?
That was about 1.5 years ago. And I said, sure, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll do my best. And it's been really powerful to connect with so many different faith traditions and faith leaders and connect with different places. So 2 Thursdays ago, we had I guess the second one I've led at the Church of Latter-day Saints in the Shores. And we had so many different faith traditions represented. And it's just so powerful to see different faith traditions come together to be particularly themselves, but also to recognize that we're so much better together than we are separate. And learning so much about the Church of Latter-day Saints, learning about the Muslim faith, learning about the Jewish faith, having different call to worships. We had, at the beginning of the service, we had 4 different call to worships at different times and then at the same time from different faith traditions. So we had the blowing of the conch shell from the Hindi tradition.
Sure.
We had the blowing of the shofar from the Jewish faith. We had the ringing of the bells and the chimes from the Christian faith. And we had a special, I don't know what the drum is called. We have the drum from the Buddhist tradition. So all these different things I've learned, it's just so powerful to see everybody together.
Well, we all have our view as to where we want to be. And what really seems to be something more, I was going through some of the verses in Acts before, I was thinking about this time and Antioch and how all of that came about and how the church began and how it became, first of all, the time that it became Christian. I've got a verse on that I'll read a little bit later. But because of that, there was, remember, no matter who you are, Jesus was a Jew. So anybody thinks that he's not, then just don't even turn around and say, okay, I don't know this guy. Well, if you may not know him, but he knows you. And so I want you to know that I am a Jew, but I'm a Christian because my mother was a Jew. And under the laws of Israel, that makes me, because if you're a child of a mother that is a Jew, you are a Jew. And in fact, when I went to Israel, if you were across the street and it was a Christian street, you were a Christian there. You didn't have to be anything. And then there's people that are Jews that don't do anything. They're Jewish, but they're not. They don't believe in what they believe in. And so I think this is getting somewhat closer to this daggum poem I was telling you I was going to do, but I don't want to get there yet. So what would happen is that, and we do this with your church, just to give you an idea, and I think that you will understand that by going there. But what happens is we've seen the numbers of people come down. We're not as strong as we were before. Whether you're Christian, whether you're Jewish, whether you're Muslim, they change a lot. It has gone so far down because people think they can do it themselves. It's all about themselves rather than about God. And so when you get to that last place of where you're at, you have to figure out, okay, what am I doing now? So when you deal with all of the different ones on the interfaith side, you get to see that. And tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really beautiful to connect with faith leaders that I've not connected with before.
Yeah.
So I learned so much more from other faith traditions. Like we were talking about the blowing of the conch shell. I didn't know that was a part of the Hindi tradition. I had no idea what that meant. And then somebody else on our Zoom call when we were planning the meeting, he said, well, actually, the blowing of that conch shell actually is a calling back to the woodland tribes. And they actually do that as well. And that's a call to the ancestors. And it's just these rituals that each faith tradition has meaning in their own particular value, but it also has meaning in different values. And it helps me understand someone else, helps me understand their faith tradition, their background, what they care about, and helps me understand where they're at and care for them as a person, as a community. Because so often you see somebody that's different, especially nowadays, you see somebody that's different and, oh, they're not like me, so I'm not going to be near them. But when you're near someone, it changes your perspective of that particular thing. So if you know, the Church of Latter-day Saints, I didn't know much about the Church of Latter-day Saints, but now that I have a connection with the bishop and Colette, who's been an incredible resource for us, it makes me understand the Church of Latter-day Saints. I got to walk around their church and hear about what they do, and they invited me to go to the temple that they're building in Jacksonville, and they've got like 3-month open space, so you can go to it.
They have the most property around Orlando than anybody that has still remaining.
Wow.
It's just, if you go down 95, that's where it's at. It's so many. So as you would think about doing development and stuff on this thing, Paul, you go past there and you see how much property is not being used for anything else.
Right.
And so at this point in time, that's the case. So I know that when you were doing all of the things, developing properties here and helping with that all the way through, and you still do, we were talking about that, but somehow you got into to going to another church that you had not been.
That's right.
And so tell us a little bit about that.
I had never been inside United Methodist.
Did you ever buy a pumpkin there?
I don't think I did.
Oh man, you got to get pumpkins.
But I remember them.
Well, you'll get a better chance next October.
I was selling pumpkins this year, actually, and I was also someone working with me said, "You're kind of a hustler, aren't you?" Because I was trying to tell people also about the church as well and Pastor Will. So I got my fill this year and bought several and gave some to neighbors.
There you go.
So what really started everything, I looked it up, it was September 1st. My cousin, older cousin, who's now in a nursing home, had attended the church since she was, she would have probably longer than that because they lived down the street on it, but she was receiving a perfect attendance for 40 years award from Pastor Will. Wow. So we wheeled her in there, and then this guy started talking.
You're talking about Pastor Will.
Pastor Will started talking, and he was so honest. And his opening speech there was the sermon I heard from you on that day, and you talked about your background like you just did, and I was like, wow, this guy is an open book. And he's just kind of thrown it out there. And then he went on with the sermon, but I was impressed with that. He said he was Baptist at one time. He was this. One time he wasn't anything. I was like, wow, what a journey. And it got me to where I wanted to learn more from this guy. And I have been coming almost if I don't hit it in person, I do the podcast, not the podcast, I do on live.
Right.
I was in Nashville one time, pulling up his sermon. Right. So Pastor Will, great knowledge, and he passes it on. The sermons are almost like a lecture. with a cause and a purpose at the end. Just like he told you about the Hinduism and the shell. Well, he finds out why they're using it and what it goes back to. So it explains it so that we can all understand where it's coming from, not just reading a verse. You really do your research on everything. He goes way back and gives the history and the foundation of certain people.
But tell me, because I know you did more than that. I remember you telling me that you were going through some readings and some ways to learn a little bit more.
Well,
Tell me about that.
All this prompted this. Starting at First United, all of a sudden, I'm listening to Joel Osteen there at night. Pastor Will did the Bible in 90 days. New Testament in 90 days. Listening to that. Then I'm getting your poems and reflections there. So, and now I have prayer.com that I'm listening to. So it's opened up all sorts of things. My great cousin, she gave me a book on like quotes from Jesus and things like that I read every morning. It's all positive, and it's all about I am with you through the thick and the thin. I'm always here, and don't forget it. So it's a new message every morning.
And that's really getting to you now.
Yeah, it makes sense. It connects. Yeah. I connect with it. Before,
it was just another place, like a Jesuit that was doing work with you as a person on education. Very good on education. Fantastic.
Yes, but much. At the masses, I felt like they were just going through the motions.
Yeah, well, there's each religion has its own ways, and I think that's what I was just talking about. So, unless you get well done with the very significant religion itself, there's no way you can get into it to really understand why they're doing it. So,
right.
So, again, I've been, some of my closest friends have been Jewish, Catholic, even those that don't believe in God, Muslims, all these people, because I know this. And someday, some way, God will tell you who he is. And you'll know who he is, when you'll know whether there's a Jesus that really carries this will and doesn't change anything, because all he did was to do what was given by his Father. And so he was one of three. And so we know that happens because we see it. We see it. It's not like we're making this up, because if we could do that, then tell me how the Psalms can be reminding us, how Isaiah can be reminding us of things that are about to happen. It's just amazing where God takes you. And that's, for me, I've been in Israel. There's another group of people that are not Jewish, but they also do the same thing that the Jews do, to go through for 2 years to work in the military and all of that. But they believe that Jesus is coming out of a man. And so they have that, and they're an amazing group there. And so everything has a reason. And so whether you think it's something bad, don't do that, because you know that they have this choice, and at one point they'll find the truth. And once truth comes to life, there's nothing you can take it away, which is what's happening to you right now.
Right.
So there's where you go. So anyway, go ahead and share the rest of that inner faith that you were talking about.
Yeah, well, I think, as you're talking about this, I'm brought to mind, Richard Rohr has a book called The Universal Christ.
I know that.
And it's an incredible book that really helped shape, how do I understand Christ, Jesus the Christ, in everything. And there's a part where he says, the purpose of life in Christ is the Christ in me sees the Christ in you and sees the Christ in everything. And it helped me understand that there's this Jesus, this Christ in everything. And my hope is to see that Christ is in all, above all, through all. And I love my faith tradition because it's a very gray area. Methodists are gray. We're not, you believe this, you're in, you believe that, you're out. We're very much, you can have Republicans and Democrats in the same spot. And I want that, because that's how you learn. That's how you care for each other. That's how you understand. And it's the same thing kind of with faith traditions. Right. when I come to someone who's a part of the Latter-day Saints, or I had a long conversation 2 Thursdays ago with someone from the Muslim faith, and they were telling me about they did a call to worship.
Right.
The Mazoon, I think is what they call it. I don't remember now. But he did his call to worship in Arabic and then had someone translate it. And I got to talk with him about that. He's like, hey, why don't you come up? We have a big mosque in Jacksonville.
That's
On
right.
Friday, you can
That's
come
right.
and it's in English.
Yeah,
And you can come and see it.
Yeah, it's a huge one on the road as you get before you get to Atlantic Boulevard.
Okay.
That's right.
He gave me his phone number. He's like, hey, I'm going to text you in a couple once we get through Thanksgiving, and I want you to come and experience our faith tradition.
Yeah.
And I'm like, absolutely, I would
Right.
love to do that, because it helps me understand. It helps me create a community with someone else to understand their faith tradition, what they stand for, what they believe in. And then I get to share my faith, and we learn from each other. And my goal is not to proselytize or convert anybody, but I share my story, they share their story, and then our idea was being weaved together like a tapestry. That was our theme for the interfaith service, and I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, well, we've had a doctor here who's Muslim, who I've known, and we get together, and but everybody, like I said, has that. But I have always said, you know what? I know who Abraham was, and Abraham did have another child, and that child was not the one he wanted. It was because he wouldn't wait. And so now he finds out who he's got, and now he has to put him on this fire to burn him alive. And so now, what are we doing now? Wait a minute. What God? Yes, continue. Just do what I ask you to do, and it'll be everything. And clearly it was. And that's really how we see it. And so we had that conversation between the two brothers. One's a half brother, because he was part, and the other is a whole brother that was their son, made by God. And so we know how that all works out, and it's just, it's so difficult to really have people understand that. But Richard Rohr was in Albuquerque, and he would always go to Santa Fe because they had a thing there every year. That's amazing. We used to have a house in Santa Fe. I never met him. I wish I had seen him because my in-laws were living in Albuquerque area, and I could have seen him there, and I could have seen him in Santa Fe, but I never saw him at all. But I've read almost all of his books. But one of the things that he did, and you might appreciate this too, because as you were describing on the Catholic side, I want to share with you between the Muslims and the Jewish. And so when you use the words, that you use them in a way that does the speaking. He met with a Muslim there at the event that was in Santa Fe. And so when you use the words, the breath, and now you're saying the same words that the Muslims do, to be able to use the name. And now you hear it, and I'll let you figure out where that is, but you can do it with your own breath and then find out from history what that means. And I'll let you do that, because you'll like that now that I've thrown this out at you. So it'll be something so significant. So yeah, it's between Jewish and Muslim, do the same way of using, and you'll figure out what that is. So there we go. So anyway, but that's kind of the thing that are there. And I think maybe I didn't, I want to at least do one of the verses that I was telling you about earlier, because I think that's one that might already be of some help. And because I'm really talking about the church. And so this is in Matthew 5:15 and 16. You are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. And then following that up was this one that came out of Acts. For all flesh is like grass, and all its glory like the flower of grass. The grass withers and the flower falls, but the word of the Lord remains forever. And the word, it's the good news that was preached to you. And then it goes on 25. This is 24 and 25. Barnabas went to Tarsus. That's where Paul was from, as we know, to look for Saul. That's his name at that time. And when he had found him, he brought him to Antioch. For a whole year they met with the church and taught a great many people. And in Antioch, the disciples were first called Christians. So that's kind of the way that the church can be put in for you as you now come into that, is that you're in Antioch.
Okay.
You're in Antioch, and you get to hear all of these same stories and learning about where God is and how you become Christian. So anyway, I don't know if that's something you've focused on, or whether you've reflected on that at all. But as I looked at it, it's why the church has always been very significant, and yet we lose them quite a bit.
You know, as I reflect, I mean, as I've gotten to know Paul the last year and a half or so, I mean, it's been really meaningful for me to hear his story. And thank you for all the kind words you say about me. But I also, I mean, I appreciate you and your openness, because you could have come to church that one day and said, "Oh, that guy's really cool," and never come back. Like, that would have been easy to do. You're like, "Oh, I'm really interested." Something about it, the spirit, something led you to say, "I'm going to come back. I want to see what that's like." And then you heard something else. I'm going to keep coming back. And then you started getting a little more involved. I'm going to go, this is a church I really appreciate. Let me go and sell pumpkins. Like, it was your openness, your courage, your strength, and the spirit working within you that you said, "Hey, yeah, I want to be a part of that." And it's so moving. And Paul's not the only person that's experienced it.
Right.
That's his particular story. But when I got there was only 25 people in service.
Well, that's why I was sharing that number with you.
Wow.
Exactly.
And now we have 100 people in person, and we have 50 people watching online from different parts of the world.
Well, I know you have Henry Dean there and his wife, Melanie.
Oh, my gosh, yeah. And that place, I mean, there's a legacy. I mean, we're celebrating 200 years this year. 200 years of being a church.
Wow.
That's pre-Civil War, which is crazy. So there is this spirit of life and hope and meaning and love and connection and community and caring for each other that's built into the system. And now that there's other people joining it, it just amplifies it. Because Paul can care for Mindy, and Mindy can care for Sam, and Sam can care for Henry, and Henry and Melanie can care for Bob and Beth Ann. You have all these people that are deeply connected, and when there's more people there, you're able to care for more and more people.
Right.
And that's just on Sunday. That's not talking about homeless ministry on Monday through Friday and caring for those who are underhoused or underserved. And it's just it's a beautiful place. It's a beautiful place. It's not the only beautiful place, but it's the beautiful place that I call home.
Yeah.
The whole church does so much for the community. You were going through it a couple Sundays ago and just reminded everyone what we do there. And maybe you could touch on that, because I was just flabbergasted. It's not, we give so much out there.
Yeah, I mean, being in downtown St. Augustine is a unique church because you're in a downtown city. Before this, I was serving a suburb church in Mandarin, and I loved it. But it was very different because in your downtown, you are the light on the hill. That's what you're called to be. So whether it be, we have 2 different AA groups. We have an NA group. We have a women's AA group, and those meet throughout the week and on Saturdays and Sundays. We have children that are in worship and children that are learning things throughout the week. You have youth that are learning throughout the week and going on retreats. Homeless ministry and unhoused, Monday through Friday, 9:30 to 11:30. If anybody needs sack lunch, clothing, toiletries, we're going to be there. And then every 2-3 months, we have a brunch on our front porch. And we set up tables and chairs just on our lawn. And we get Bojangles biscuits. And then people in the community come and bring bags to pass out and just food. And we just sit and talk with individuals.
Yeah, that's great.
And get to know them and feed and eat together. And, there's just so much light that I think comes from that church. And I hope that light inspires other churches, Memorial Perez, Trinity Downtown, Grace UMC. I mean, my hope is that we have all these different lights that shine, which make all of St. Augustine a light.
Yeah. Well, I think
And
that's
very unique. It's an outreach church, and open arms and come let us help you. I did the overnight when it was too cold outside, so they opened up the big room there, and so there I was in the kitchen sleeping on the floor from 11 till 6 a.m. or something like that, and so that was quite the experience. I had someone standing over me about 4 a.m, and she just wanted to get some water. Anyway.
And I think, I mean, if that existed a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, I wonder if you'd be a part of that. Or I wonder if in the last year and a half, God's Spirit has been working on you and calling you.
Oh, yeah.
And guiding you and making you be more compassionate, more loving. Not that you weren't compassionate loving earlier.
It's a work in progress. That was for sure. And it's all opened me up, and I feel like I'm more patient, kinder there, and it's working. I connect it there. But my spirituality is very private, though. I'm not going to go try to recruit people. I'll tell people what church I attend there, and they, if they start asking, that's fine.
One of these days that will change.
Okay.
It will change, because you'll want others to be able to know what you're learning.
Right.
And so you can't do it if you just keep it to yourself.
This is true. This is true.
And you'll see.
I tried it on the pumpkin sales. That was a little bit different.
Well, you'll see it. You'll see.
We had a captive audience.
No, you'll see it when it happens, and it becomes so important.
Yeah.
Because that's where God gets closer to you as you get closer to Him. That's in James. And so the closer you get to God, the closer He comes to you, and that's really where you go. And the more you do it, the more you'll see where you were. And I can tell you this, that when Paul, everybody thinks, hey, he did that. He had to get this stuff off his eyes. He had to do all this. And by the way, he then took right off. No. He worked for 40 years as a tent person. Now, the tent might be very easily the one that they wore, because that was the tent that you had over your body. So it didn't have to be a large tent like going on the military or going out, but there was a tent that you carried, because it then gave it all there. So they don't know exactly which one it is, because that's what he did. He was a tent maker, and he did that for 40 years. He didn't just start doing what he did. So we don't ever get going immediately. But I can tell you this. I wish I'd done it earlier. And you're going to feel the same.
Sure.
Because you had more opportunities than other people do once you know who God is with you. And that's so significant. It's hard for me to really refocus this, because even when I went to Ukraine back in the 90s, right after the fall of communism, and then went the following year, I'm still in touch with my people that I've known there. And I haven't lost that. And I feel that has always continued to be something there. And I always thought I was so close to God. Well, I found out after my wife passed away that, in fact, I was still a pre-K. I was not even as close as I thought I would, even after I was doing all these Sunday conversations, until she passed away. And then God said to me, get closer, and I'll be closer to you. So that was it. And that's when that starts happening, then you see my poems,
Right.
You see those, and that's where they come from. I can't make those up. That's just the way it is. Well, you made me do it again. So
they're great. They're great poems.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't going to do it, but since you had just said the light on the hill, I think you created this story here that I'll end with it. Then we can kind of move on to really something more. So the poem is Light on the Hill. Thanksgiving dinner may have leftovers, but the purpose of Thanksgiving was not for food, but to give thanks to God. The reflections were families being together and inviting others, almost like a flock of birds heading south in the winter together. Before the November days that ended with a Thanksgiving Day, and October Halloween was there where pumpkins were used to light the night, and then pumpkins became pies on Thanksgiving Day. It's interesting to reflect that now we begin with spiritual days we cannot forget and instead should remember why we are here. During December days, some go to church or a temple or a synagogue just 1 or 2 times each year, but believe they think that's all they need. But as you look around the world, you can see the falling houses of God, except for the older and younger ones who share God's love while others are not seen. This is not just another I told you so, nor is this just because it's you have too much to do, but one day you will need your daily prayers. There are places you can find where God wants you to be with him and help others find where they were going once upon a lifetime. If all you see are gray and dark skies, even though the sun shines, just when you saw what had no time, then just see the light on the hill. Maybe it is when you are lost trying to find a place where you wish you had been or where you wanted to be for now and eternity, and the light will show you the way. So
That's great.
That was the one today. I didn't know where we were going. I told you that as we were talking.
Someone did.
So that's the place. So, but I really want you to, both of you, to really share now, because you've been here now for a while, and you've done more things than you ever thought you would. And so how that has done, and how you also, Paul, have done other things long before, and now are moving in a different way. So I want you both to explain that to the people that are here so that they understand that they too have that opportunity. And whether they go to your church or any other church or wherever they believe, God will take them on their path. And then they will find out if they're in the right place. As you have gone Presbyterian and Baptist and all of that, well, I can share that I've done some of those myself. And so I know that that's not where I wanted to be, because God left that for me to make that decision, not him. And he shows me where to go. So anyway, that's where I'm at, Will. So
You want to go first?
Go ahead.
I think the thing that it ties back to Paul's story, and Paul Thompson, not Paul from Tarsus, but I think it starts by being open, because sometimes we get, for me at least, I sometimes get stuck in my emotion and my rhythm of I do this and I do this and I do this and I do this, and the thing that I've learned most is to hold things a little less tight, to kind of keep an open hand, an open palm, and by being open, it allows God to enter. I mean, even before we came in this room, we had a prayer, and it wasn't a prayer of us speaking together, but it was a prayer of just letting God speak and us keeping our ears open to the furthest sound, not the refrigerator that was winning, but the what is the sound that God is calling you towards. And I think for me, I try to hold things loosely, because if I hold it tightly, then it's just me and my plans and my agenda. And when I hold it a little looser, God then moves and shapes. And it was never my plan to be a Methodist pastor. I wanted to be a professional tennis player and play at Wimbledon. That was my plan. But God was moving and shaping me. And I mean, my great-grandparents were Nazarene pastors, helped start the Nazarene ministry in Indiana. And I think God has always been moving and shaping me. And it was just me having to be open to where God is guiding me, and being courageous to take that next step, because moving out of that comfort zone is uncomfortable. I think me trying to be uncomfortable is how I've heard God's voice.
Yeah, Paul, tell me
Okay, so I'm rediscovering myself, and this church has made me do some decisions. Like, a lot of people would be surprised that when I moved here in '86, I only planned on being here 3 to 5 years. And I have always had one foot out the door. And then the real estate was going. I couldn't leave Dad, but for years, up until COVID time, I had one foot out the door in this town. I was going to be in Italy. I'm moving. And COVID kind of opened my eyes to how great and blessed we are to be in a town like this. We can go out, and it's not just the weather. The people are great, and I just had more appreciation for it, to the point that during the service we give names out to be lifted up if they're sick or there's no. One time I even did my dog Molly, who had passed that morning, but I made a decision that I'm calling this town home, and I put that in, and you read it. And it's like, I was embarrassed to tell people after 40 years I've decided to call this home, but that's how I felt. And so it has given me this calmness about always looking away to get away. And so I feel like I'm more grounded here, and just happier, and that's what it's been all bringing out. And it like I said, I'm rediscovering myself here.
Yeah, well, that's what we all do.
Yeah,
We do that daily. And
I learn it daily too.
That's right. That's what happens, is that there's, even when I was in college, just to give you some ideas of this, it's the same thing. I go to college. I'm going to be a lawyer. I was working in Publix at Lakeland, but I was doing it in Brandon, and they wanted me to become a manager. I did everything. I emptied the trucks. I did all the stuff that they had to do. I didn't do it for that. I did it for the money so I could go back and forth to my college, University of South Florida. And then I thought, well, I want to go to University of Virginia Law School because I want to be there where Jefferson was. I want to be there. And so I took my LSAT, and my first go around was enough to get me into the Florida schools, but not enough to get me in there. So I took it again, which normally you get maybe 30 or 40 points difference on your LSAT. I got over 250 points difference.
Wow.
So I thought, well, now maybe they'll take me. Well, they averaged them together. And I still didn't make it. So what happened was, and it turned out for me very differently, because I was working up in Washington for Congressman Sam Gibbons. I was there in the summer, and I ended up having a photo taken by my college that was put on the front page, and it was the first time it was a covered one for students that were there in color. So I ended up having, at that time, a person who later became the speaker, but he was the majority leader, and then also Gibbons, and we're there together on the steps of the Capitol. And so now the professor now says to me later on, while I'm working at Publix at 5:30 in the morning, and I go back and go to sleep, and then go to USF. It was a long drive for me. It was almost an hour.
Wow.
And I ended up doing that. And he asked me, he said, well, I've got this people coming that are coming to FSU law school. And I said, yeah. And I said, but I've already been admitted to Florida. And he said, well, all I ask you to do is go meet them. And I said, okay, I'll do that. Being very kind, I was doing that. Well, it turned out that the only time they had was 8 a.m. And so I'm thinking I couldn't even change clothes. And so I go there and I'm complaining to myself, why did I do this? What was so good about my coming here? I should have said yes. I should have said no. I'm already done. So I get there, and I see as I walk in that the professor, the dean, had two canes that he had to walk with, and I'm thinking, he's dumber than me. And we ended up speaking through the next person's time, and he gave me a full scholarship.
Wow.
Well, that was not the story.
Okay.
That was the beginning of a story.
Mm-hmm.
So as it turned out, the following semester, and I won't get into all the details before why I didn't ever go back to class again, but I'll share that. But as a result, I was in the library because I was across from FAMU, and where the library there had much more law books than anything else, so I didn't have to go over to the school that didn't have as many law books, and nobody ever saw me. So, but I went one day to the library there at FSU, and there was this blonde-haired lady, and I never saw her before, so I sat very close, obviously. I was there, and it turned out that was Jo. And so because of that, we were married for 52 years until she died.
Yeah, it's a great story.
So you can't tell where God is taking you or where it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I even dropped out in my senior year to work with a guy that decided to walk the state of Florida that came from Lakeland and became a U.S. senator and then a governor and all that. So, you know, you together always have the opportunity to choose where you're going. But if you listen to God, you will never find a way other than seeing the light on the hill. And that light on the hill is something that Reagan even used in his speech. That was what he did one of his times when he was running. And so that's kind of where we've been. So we're kind of wrapping it up now and just thinking that. So what other thoughts do you have before we finish up? We got a few minutes to go, but not much. Goes quick. It goes so quick.
It does. Great stories.
You're talking, I was reminded of, I think it was Martin Luther King who said, you can't see the whole staircase, you just see the first step. And I think God guides you towards that first step. And I think for me, I wasn't planning on coming to First Church. I didn't know what First Church was. I didn't even know what Methodism was. But God kind of guided me and moved me and morphed me and showed me this step, which then led me this step, which just led me this step, which led me this step. And I've got a lot more steps to go. And they might wind and turn, but you know, I trust that God has guided me to that next step. And First Church is an incredible place. A place when I first walked in, that first step in, you walk in and you see the old sanctuary with red carpet, and it was almost as if the church gives me a big hug and says, "Welcome home."
Yeah, that's great.
And that was that step. So I would just encourage people. You don't have to know the whole thing. You don't have to know the whole story, but you know that first step. So be courageous and take that step.
All right. And Paul, anything to add to this?
I can't wait to see where he takes me, because I've had a lot of things in my past and I wonder why they happened. But slowly I'm learning why they did. And someone sent a saying to me, which I thought was very appropriate. When God made me, he grinned and said, "This will be fun." And so that's about where I am.
That's great. Well, I want to let you know this today happens to be the last time of the St. Augustine Beach Commission meeting for this year. Will be the last one that my son, the mayor, St. Augustine Beach, has done. So this is his last day. And so I'm going to be there tonight to just watch the last ending, because the last ending is always the first beginning.
That's right.
So there you go. So there's how
well
it
put.
does. Yeah, so that's how it comes. And there's so many things that we could talk about today. And I thank all these people. I thank Chris Shee again for doing so much on Thanksgiving, and DJ Clam Shack is just there. I know you knew the person who's the manager
Yes,
there.
and I eat there all the time. They have great food, and I'm friends with Chris, and just a incredible man.
Yeah.
Just
well, we've been very blessed. And
yes.
It's been so good to be able to be with both of you, and I know that God has a plan, and we just listen and wait
and watch
where he goes. All right. Well, thank you all very much, and you have a very blessed day yourselves. And let this pre and post Thanksgiving be always for God. We ask it in thy name.